Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Will. It's Saturday, March 20th, 2020. 3/20/2020. That's right. I'm standing here today in Kivik, Sweden, on the east coast, standing on top of a burial mound, a cairn from the Bronze Age. You can see out here. Let's take a look real quick. So yeah, this was an ancient burial ground. It's very unique for the region. You can see out here, man, this would have been a spectacular place. You're standing outside of here, a sacred place. You'd see the sun coming up. It would have been quite spectacular. I mean, this belonged to a whole nother civilization prior to us. I mean, typically, most people think, human history goes on this straight linear line, up, 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 increase in technology, but that's really not the truth of the way things really happened. I mean, we see civilizations rise and fall, and rise again, fall. And, I don't want to be alarmist, but I think that this is kind of like we're seeing something like this again. That's why I want to stand here on top of this place. I think it's a perfect place to kind of introduce this topic. Let's talk about the Bronze Age. First, let's go down here and we'll go inside the center of this, and we'll see what makes this particular cairn so unique. And it's because it contains petroglyphs. It's like a dolmen or a walk-in grave originally. It goes back into the Mesolithic when you had, hunter-gatherers, into the Neolithic, where you have like it's Stone Age, but people are farming, and then it moves into the Bronze Age. And the Bronze Age is a spectacular era. This is the age of, the heroes and all that stuff, when you're going back and reading, like the Homer and stuff like that. You think of these civilizations down into the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, and on the Ganges. But the Bronze Age civilization encompassed all of Europe. I mean, from Afghanistan to Cornwall in England or in Wales. So let's go downstairs and let's go inside this thing and take a peep. All right, let's just take a look at this before we head down there. All right, yeah, pretty impressive. Okay, that's a lot of stone to move, huh? I bet that took a minute. All right, before we head in here, let's talk about what made the Bronze Age so unique and so spectacular and so relevant to today. And that's, first thing, it was a globalist society, if you will. Everything, the material of the day, of course, was bronze, hence the Bronze Age. In order to make bronze, you need tin. And tin was very hard to locate back in that time. It was in Afghanistan. It was in Cornwall. You could also make a bronze out with an arsenic mix, but that's, of course, harmful, dangerous, and didn't create the product was inferior. So you had these extensive trade networks that went all over the world. Eventually, through a perfect storm, the entire civilization collapsed. Now, it persisted up here a little longer, for about 500 years. They're a little more insulated from all the effects. The culture had taken root and survived a little longer. But down in the Fertile Crescent area, cities were just buried over, abandoned. It was horrible. Now, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the Sea Peoples. And we don't know exactly who they were, but it wasn't just the Sea Peoples that created this collapse. It was a perfect storm of things. I mean, why did the Sea Peoples, why were they on a rampage? Was it, there was climate change, there was famine, disease, migrations from other people coming down from that were being, fleeing their areas or being pushed out. Man, it's a lot of parallels that you can draw, from today. So that's when that's what concerns me. I mean, Sweden over here is the last place in the West that hasn't really instituted any type of lockdown, quarantine, anything. They're hardly even saying anything. I haven't posted them up. I'm going to try to get to it and post them up after this. But I did an update while I was out at work. I build skateboard parks for a living, okay? And I'm out there hours from home working, and I'm telling you, everybody over here is just as cool as a cucumber about this thing. You're starting to see people getting a little more anxious and a little more, taking more precautions. But the main, we'll get through this. We'll get through it. But the question is what kind of repercussions, or what is this? Could this be something that really sparks a larger chain? I mean, we look what's going on with the stock markets. There's massive amounts of people moving about. We hear the climate change hysteria is always echoing in the background. And now we have a pandemic. So, we'll see. We'll see where this all heads to. It's going to be interesting. Let's go ahead and head inside this burial chamber and look at some of this. Okay, it's dark in here, but this is what makes this place so unique. These stones were found in the middle. You can see here that you had these solar symbols. This whole complex, this thing, this big mound is one big solar symbol. But you can see here the crosses. This predates Christianity big time. You see this, it's also in Mithraism, the sign of Mithras, and it goes into Christianity. And a funny thing about that is that the cross represents the sun. And, he was crucified and then resurrected, the falling and, the rising of the sun. I always thought that was interesting. And you can see here that this is a very Indo-European symbol, okay? Now, if you go back into the Bible, we got a bad echo in here. I hope you can hear this. But if you go back into the Bible, they say that the earth was populated after the flood by the sons of Noah. You would have had Shem, Ham, and Jebeth. Thank you, Jebeth. Jebeth would have been like the progenitor of the Indo-Europeans, where Sem would have been the progenitor of the Semitic people, and Ham would have fathered the African people. That's just, all according to the Bible. But it's funny how these things, there's always a glint of truth in these old stories. This is a very, like I said, Indo-European symbol. These people would have originated from around the Caspian Sea. And they were the first people to sorry. Yeah, sorry. They would have been from the Caspian Sea. These people would have been the first people to domesticate the horse. And you can see there was a very, the horse plays a huge role in Indo-European religions. You can see it all the way up into Hengist and Horsa with the Saxons. You can see here, with the ship. So the theory is that these ancient Indo-Europeans and their diaspora, they would have spread out over into India, populated all up through Europe, taken the Danube and that sort of thing up into Scandinavia. They would have brought with them the domesticated horse. They would have had, they were working in bronze, and they were charioteers. There's another symbol with this. And they would have blended in with this population, and of course here the boat is much more important. You can't traverse across Sweden. I mean, you can, but it's extremely hard. I mean, it is really rough terrain. It would take you 4 times longer easy than going by boat. Now you can see over here we have some more characters. You have this omega sign here. Now maybe that's a torque, or maybe it's, you know, because of the close contact with civilizations from the Mediterranean trading amber for bronze, the Scandinavians would have picked up a lot of course, their symbols and that sort of thing. So, and that's what they were, you know, their major trade article would have been amber. People loved that stuff back in antiquity, thought it had magical powers. And you can also see these figures are very interesting. We have some more sun symbols, the chariot. This would have been, you know, pulling the sun across the sky. We have some figures over here, animals. There's also some figures with hats on, these conical hats, and that, you know, the magician's hat. So this is all depicting these ceremonies and mythology surrounding this burial. You can see here that we have some more solar symbols and some bronze axes. We can't really make out what's on this one. I think it's down here. On this one, you see the people with the hats. But anyway, but yeah, it's a great little piece of history here. Let me get out the sun. Great little piece of history here, and yeah, you really feel a big vibe, and it's just beautiful scenery to get out here. I highly recommend it if you're ever out over this way. I'm gonna wrap this one up, and maybe we'll get, there's actually some stones, a ship burial. Well, it's a stone ship site around the corner. Maybe we go peep that.